Rewards for a trusted deposit.
Countless trade unions took to the streets today. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people were on the streets protesting, demanding for systemic change, demanding for solutions to the crises that Sri Lankans are facing, and demanding for the current administration to step down. Good evening and welcome to News First, primetime news on TV1, where the people come first. Before we take a look at those stories in detail, here are your top stories for tonight. Thousands of Sri Lankan trade unions on strike, demanding the President, the Prime Minister and the government to resign. Bus and railway services disrupted, government services crippled. Farmers confront newly appointed Minister of Agriculture. Prime Minister goes to Abhayarama Temple. President summons SLPP MPs. Former Minister Namal says the correct decisions need to be made. Public respond to Ridhimali at the Politico. Starting off with your top story tonight, a development in the much controversial incident that took place in Rambukkana. News coming just in. The Criminal Investigations Department have arrested 4 police officers in connection to the Rambukkana shooting. Senior police spokesperson, Senior DIG Ajit Rohana, elaborated on the incident.
SSP KB Kirthiratna, former division in charge of Kegol Police Division, was arrested by Criminal Investigation Department this evening according to the court order issued by Kegol Magistrate Court. And in addition to that, another team was deployed to arrest the members of the firing team, and 3 police constables have been arrested by Criminal Investigation Department in Kandi Kundasala area this evening, and accordingly 4 officers have been arrested by Criminal Investigation Department according to the court order. Further actions will be taken as per the court order.
Today was slated to be a day of massive protests in Colombo. What was the situation like in Colombo throughout the day? Thousands of trade unions staged a nationwide strike today in what was known as the largest ever strike in recent Sri Lankan history. Now, these protesters were demanding the resignation of the President, the Prime Minister and the government. A large number of workers from government and semi-government and also the private sector, as well as plantation workers, took part in this one-day token strike.
Transportation services, academic activities, public offices and other daily operations were disrupted across the country as trade unions took part in protests and strikes. Railway services in Sri Lanka were hampered today as railway workers had decided to report in sick today. Majority of the private buses stepped away from operating today, while many school services also decided to support the trade union action. Student turnout at schools was at a low as many school teachers had also reported in sick. Government and semi-government institutions in the Colombo city were affected by the trade union action, and some private sector employees also decided to support it. Protests and demonstrations were held in almost all cities in the country, and in some areas shops were closed as a mark of support for the trade union action.
Executive-grade government employees joined the trade union action by protesting at Vihar Mahadevi Park.
As executive-level state sector workers, we are demanding the government to resign immediately. Respect the people's mandate and resign. Let the people decide.
The executive-grade government employees then marched towards the People's Struggle demonstration, which is staged opposite the President's office. Meanwhile, the State Administrative Service employees staged their protest at the Independence Square today. Former Election Commissioner Mahinda Deshapriya also participated in this protest.
Everyone is asking for this system to be changed. The people had issues with the executive presidential system from 1978. All of this discontent exploded when the economic crisis hit. This is not something that can be done by simply solving the economic crisis. This is not the official stance of the association. This is the personal opinion of Mahinda Deshapriya. Some people say we can ask the people who we elected to resign and leave public office. There is something called the right to recall. If this is included in our constitution, this can be done officially. The people will have the power to recall elected officials. On the other hand, once our representatives are elected, there should also be a People's Council.
19 plus must necessary but not sufficient.
People living in urban and rural areas joined the island-wide trade union action today. A protest march was held in Anuradhapura. Staff attached to government, semi-government and private sector institutions, as well as civil activists, trade unions, bankers and student unionists joined the protest. The protest began from the Maithripala Senanayaka Road and ended at the Anuradhapura bus stand. A protest led by university lecturers, doctors, lawyers, public servants and non-academic university staff was staged in the Mathura town. Protesters from several directions marched to the Gota Goguma branch in Mathuram. The trade union action organized under the theme Bow to the Referendum, the government is going home, saw the participation of trade unions representing the public and private sector. The protesters marched to the Gota Gogama branch in Kurunagala from 4 main roads. Dairy farmers joined the protest with tools used for agriculture. Members of many trade unions gathered at the Badulla town for the National Protest Day today. Another protest held in Ratnapura saw the participation of government and semi-government employees and members of other independent groups. This was the situation at the Rikilagaskaravala town. The Putlam District Trade Union Federation launched a protest march in Chilau. The protesters marched through the Chilau-Colombo road. The protesters then staged a protest opposite the Chilau hospital. A protest march in Kegol started at the location where the Rambukana shooting took place recently. Residents and public servants joined the protest march. Another protest held in Nuwara saw the participation of public and private sector employees as well as the public. A joint protest organized by a volunteer organization in Dambulla saw the participation of trade unions of economic centers, postal and medical staff. The people in Vaunia also staged protests today.
The people made a mistake when they voted for Gotabaya Rajapaksa. They have understood it and are on the streets against him. The government of Gotabaya must leave. This is the last opportunity we will receive.
Another protest by public and private sector employees took place in Galle. This was a protest that took place in Minuwangoda.
Over 1,000 trade unions engaged in the one-day strike action marched from the technical junction in Colombo this afternoon. The trade unions marched to the President's office in Colombo.
We wish to tell the government not to undermine the struggles at workplaces. We wish to tell the Rajapaksas that all the workers have stepped onto the streets. We wish to tell the Rajapaksas to leave. If you don't understand, when we tell you to go or leave, remember that we will chase you out. That is our message. Many power plants cannot operate due to the shortage of fuel. They have no answer to this situation. This government cannot rise again for years to come. If this is the situation of the CEB, one of the most important entities in the country, we cannot let it carry on until the 6th of May. On that day, people who work at all these important entities will have to step out. The massive protest has sent a clear message to the government. That is, stop wasting time and leave. If you don't, we will push you out. That is the message. We saw Mahinda Rajapaksa stating that if he leaves, the country would be in a state of anarchy. In reality, the country is already in a state of anarchy. Over 1,000 trade unions have stepped out and are demanding Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Rajapaksa administration to leave. We will give them 7 days to leave. After that, we will go into an indefinite strike action. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa are attempting to secure their future generations with these fresh cabinets. As the working masses, we have asked them to leave. If they cannot do that, on the 6th of May, we will step out with the people and force them out.
The Ceylon Bank Employees Union protested opposite the Central Bank of Sri Lanka today, demanding that the mafia on foreign currency be stopped and the banking sector be protected. The group handed over a letter addressed to the Governor, Director of the Bank Supervision Department and the IMF representative in Sri Lanka and thereafter commenced their march. They made their way to the President's office in Colombo. The United Trade Unions and mass organizations, along with several other trade unions, commenced a march from the Lake House roundabout. They too marched to the President's office in Colombo. Today marks 20 days for the Occupy Galle Face protest that demands for the immediate resignation of the President, Prime Minister and the government. Trade unions, mass organizations, civil activists and many others who protested in line with the protest day entered the Occupy Galle Face protest site.
Yesterday, Gotabaya Rajapaksa had issued a gazette making it mandatory for all our traders to provide an invoice for all transactions. Before they implement that, we wish to ask from Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his group about the money they looted from us. Did they take it to Dubai or Uganda or the Seychelles? The money must be released. If they don't, we will force them to do it.
Teachers from across the country who supported the protests stressed on the need to prepare a country where children can have a secure future. We wish to tell all the politicians in the country to stop destroying this country. The country is almost destroyed completely with little portions spared. We are aging, but there needs to be a country for the children. If this situation continues, our children will only be able to travel overseas as refugees. If you came because the people wanted, you must be able to leave when the people say so.
ජීවිතේට අපිට සිහින තියෙනවනේ. ඒ සිහින තියෙනවද වළංගුද තව දුරටත්? සිහිනයක්ම වෙයි. මිනිස්සුන්ගේ කැමැත්තට ආවනම් මිනිස්සුන්ගේ කැමැත්තට යන්න. කඩවල පොතුත් නැහැ. තියෙන පොත් ගිනි ගණන් දෙමව්පියන්ගේ පඩිය වැඩි වෙලා නැහැ. බඩු සියල්ල දවස ගානේ. හැමදාම උදේට සර්ප්‍රයිස්. එතකොට ඒ දෙමව්පියෝ ඒ සර්ප්‍රයිස් එක මැද කොහොමද දරුවගේ අධ්‍යාපනයට අවශ්‍ය පාසුකම් සලසන්නේ?
Venerable Polonnaruwa, Dimbulagala, Ruhunugama, Ratna Lankara Thero commenced a fast unto death from last night.
මම මෙතනින් යන්නේ නැහැ. මගේ උස්ම ටික වාතලයට කුණු වෙලා ගියත් මෙතනින් නැගිටින්නේ නැහැ කියන චේතනාවෙන් තමයි මම ඊයේ රෑ ඉඳලා මෙනේ කරන් නැගිටින්නේ නැහැ.
All shops at first and second cross streets were closed today and the traders were seen at the protest site.
ඉන්න මේ පිටකොටුවේ ජනතාව පඩිය හම්බ වෙන්නේ 25යි. සබන්කට 50ක් ගත්තොත් පඩිය ඉවරයි. එතකොට ජනතාව සබන් විතරද ගන්නනේ. තිබොන්නේ නැද්ද ළමයි? අපි ඡන්ද දුන්නේ මේගොල්ලන්ට මේක කරන්නද? අපිට මේකට උත්තර ඕනේ. මේගොල්ලන්ට ගාණක් නැහැ. මේගොල්ලෝ ගෙදරින් දඟානවා. අපිට මොකද කියලා?
කරුණාකර ගෝඨපාත මහත්තයා මේ රට කරන්න පුළුවන් එක්කෙනෙකුට බාර දීලා ඔබතුමා යන්න. ඒ වගේම අගමැතිතුමාටත් අපි බල කරනවා මේ රට ඇවිල්ලා අපිට බාර දීලා යන්න.
Staff attached to the Katunayaka Investment Promotion Zone launched a protest this morning in support of the island-wide trade union action by government, semi-government and private sector workers. The group walked from the Katunayaka Investment Promotion Zone to the Avarivatta Junction.
ගන්න දේවල් නෑ කෑස් නෑ තෙල් නෑ අපිට ඕනේ අලුත් දේවුම් ටිකක් අලුත් බුද්ධිමත් දේවුම් ටිකක් අපිට ඕනේ.
This evening, a group decided to protest by obstructing the road leading to the Katunayaka International Airport. The protest prevented any vehicle from entering or exiting the airport. Airport and Aviation Services Vice Chairman Rajiv Suryarachi told Newsfirst that pilots, staff and passengers were allowed to enter via the cargo operations gate. More than 6,000 employees attached to the Kokgala Free Trade Zone launched a protest demanding the president's resignation. One lane along the Matharagol main road was obstructed due to the protest.
බර දරා ගන්න බැරුව දැබෙන වැටුපෙන් ජීවත් වෙන්න වියදත් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා තමයි අපි මේ අරගලයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ. මෙච්චර කඩේ මිනිස්සු කෑ ගහලා කියද්දි ගෙදර යන්න කියලා තවත් පැල් බැඳගෙන ඉන්න එපා යන්න.
The staff attached to the Vatupitivala Investment Promotion Zone launched a protest march to Nittambua this morning.
Estate workers also joined the island-wide strike action today. Area residents of Dharaniyagala together marched from the Udabagi junction to the Dharaniyagala town. The group then staged a protest at the Dharaniyagala town until 2 p.m. According to our correspondent, employees of other factories in the area also joined the protest. The price of gas, cement and the cost of living has increased. We can't afford to buy a packet of milk for our children. This administration, including the Prime Minister, must be held responsible for this. We are demanding for their immediate resignation. Estate workers in Dikkoya also staged a protest. Estate workers in Lellavanduraba staged a protest demanding the resignation of the president. The price of goods have skyrocketed. People cannot get food. Children of estate workers were usually given a cup of milk before they leave for school, but the Rajapaksa government has stopped that as well. Estate workers in Lidwala Nuwara staged a protest at the Meraya town. The protesters marched to the residence of State Minister Aravind Kumar. The people are finding it hard to pluck tea leaves daily. The price of goods keep on increasing. Estate workers who gathered at the Kadapola town in Nuwara also staged a protest. Shops in Nuwara, Hatton, Talavakale, Kotagala, Norwood, Bhagavantalawa and Muskiliya were closed down today in a show of support for the protest staged by estate workers over the rising cost of living, shortage of fuel and daily power outages.
The farming community staged protests calling for the resignation of the president and the government. Farmers from Polonnaruwa decided to march from the historic Deepaviyana to Kadirwala to protest. Our correspondent reported that vehicular movement along the Polonnaruwa-Batiklu main road was hampered for about 5 hours. The Parakrama Samudra United Farmers Association had organized the protest. The farmers then staged a protest opposite SLPP MP Roshan Ranasinghe's residence.
They're requesting fertilizer and pesticides. They want the compensation which the government promised. You have 8 more days. If you don't resolve our issues and provide relief to the farmers, we will have to take stern action against the government.
A protest march organized by the All Ceylon Farmers Federation was staged in Galgamur, where farmers walked from Madinoru to Megalava.
Take a decision tonight. The President and the Cabinet should resign. The Prime Minister should also step down. As farmers, we are demanding the government to let the people decide on this. Respect the people's mandate.
Economic centers across the country did not operate today to support the trade union action.
Minister of Agriculture Janaka Vakkumura and State Minister Shanta Bandara visited the Parliament roundabout, where members of the National Farmers Collective were staging a demonstration. They requested the demonstrators to vacate the area. This is the situation that ensued.
රසායනික පොහොර ගෙන්නපු සමාගම් වලට බිලියන 22ක් අපි ණයයි.
ඇමති මණ්ඩලය අඩු කරලා මේ පොහොර ටික ගේන්න වතුර දුන්නට වැඩක් නැහැ. පොහොර නෑනේ.
ඔයාලා කැමති නම් මෙතනින් අයින් වෙනවා මේ උසාවි නියෝග කරනවා මොකක්වත් අපි එපා කියලා මේ ඕගොල්ලෝ කොහොමද පාරේ යනවාට අපි කැමති නැහැ.
ෆෝටෝ එකක් ගේන්න ෆෝටෝ එකක් ගේන්න අපි එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔබතුමාලාගේ අවම බලය තියෙනවානේ අවම බලය පාවිච්චි කරලා
Despite the health workers supporting the island-wide strike, they did not withdraw from hospitals. However, today doctors and other medical staff of nearly 100 hospitals island-wide engaged in a protest, demanding for the resignation of the government. The main protest was staged opposite the Colombo National Hospital. Another protest march was also organized from the National Hospital to the Ministry of Health. Hospitals have run out of drugs, medical equipment, and there is no transport for health workers either. Basically, this government has no solutions to any problems. Specialists, leading physicians and junior staff of the Sri Jayawardhanapura New Hospital staged a protest march today from the hospital premises to Kimbulavela Junction. We do not have medicine because of this government. Even though they ask us to buy medicine from Colombo, there is no medicine in Colombo either. This protest demanding the resignation of the current government was organized by the staff of the Kurunegala Teaching Hospital. They staged a protest march from the hospital to the Kurunegala town.
Meanwhile, protesters continue to remain at Mainagogama opposite the temple trees. The protesters are demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa.
මේ රජය විසින් කරපු මිලේච්ඡ ඝාතන වලට එරෙහිව තමයි මේ උපවාසය කරන්නේ. අපිට ඉල්ලන්න තියෙන්නේ මේවට යුක්තිය. අපි මේ උපවාසය අපි දිගින් දිගටම කරනවා, නොනවත්තා කරනවා නිරාහාරව. මේවට යුක්තිය ඕනේ. අපේ මිනිස්සුන්ට යුක්තිය ඕනේ.
අපි බුදුදහමට කරු කරනවා. අපි පිරිත් වලට කරු කරනවා. නමුත් බුදුදහමයි ඒ සිවුරයි අස්සේ ඉඳගෙන මේ රට විනාශ කරන්න එපා කියලා අපි රාජපක්ෂවන්ට මතක් කරනවා. ඒ වගේම කොමන බාධකාවක් අපි අපේ අරගෙන නවත්තන්නේ නැහැ කියන එකත් අපි මතක් කර සිටිනවා මේ මොහොතේ.
News First with the people.
Those were the voices of the people who were demanding for systemic change, who were demanding for our leaders to make right all the wrongs that they have committed during the past few decades. But what are our leaders doing? Are they taking the right steps? We'll bring you the details after this short commercial break.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එකක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න
යස ඉසුරු පිරුණු තැනක් නෙවේක ලොකුම සල්ලි තියෙන තැන අපේ සල්ලිත් පරිස්සම් නිසා
ඉහළ ප්‍රතිලාභ සමගින් විශ්වාසනීය තැන්පතුවක්
LB Yasa Isuru, unparalleled rewards for a trusted deposit.
Welcome back to the news. Addressing the Samagi Jana Balavagiya freedom struggle in Galigambo today, leader of the opposition Sajid Premadasa said that the Rajapaksa dynasty bankrupted Sri Lanka in just 30 months.
Today marks the third day of the freedom struggle march organized by the Samagi Jana Balavagiya. The protest march commenced from Galigambo today.
මාසතිහක් ඇතුළත මේ රාජපක්ෂ පවුල මේ රට බංකොලොත් කරා
This Rajapaksa dynasty bankrupted Sri Lanka in just 30 months. Today we are regarded as a nation that cannot pay her debts. Endless corruption of national assets and resources pushed us to this default today. During the last presidential campaign, I made a promise. It was to assign Field Marshal Fonseca to ensure national security and to arrest the culprits behind these corrupt acts. This promise is still valid even today. We need to punish these thieves who looted our money. They need to be brought to a court of law, and we need to reacquire the wealth this family stole from our nation. The man who saved our country from the 30-year-old civil war will lead this, and together we will make this a reality once we come to power. They want us to be a part of an interim government. Is that what you want?
අන්තර්වාර පාලන ආණ්ඩුවකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න කියලා තමුන්නාසලා කැමතිද? කැමතිද? මෙන්න ජනමතය.
Here is a mandate. We will not be part of any interim government. that had looted the country in 30 months and sold off parts to other nations.
කෝටි පතියන්ට බදු සහන දීලා රටේ ජාතික දේපල උතුර එක රටකට දකුණ තව රටකට නැගෙනහිර තව රටකට බටහිර තව රටකට විකුණපු හොර හැත්තත් එක්ක අපිට අන්තර්වාර පාලන නැහැ.
The Freedom Struggle March will reach Colombo on the 1st of May.
Prime Minister makes surprise visit to Abhayarame Temple. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa visited the Abhayarame Temple in Narahimpita this afternoon. Our correspondents reported that the Prime Minister called on Venerable Muruthettuwe Anandathera at 12:30 p.m.
මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා ආවා.
ඒක අමතක නෙමෙයි මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ කෙනෙකුට දන්නේ කෙනෙක් සතිපතාමේ අධ්‍යාපනය පිටින් වයින්නවා. අද අලුතෙන් ආවනේ නේ.
හරි අද දැන් මේ විශේෂ ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන දවසේ මම
ඒක නෑ. ඒක මම කතා කරන්න දෙන්නේ වැඩකුත්
නෑ. මේ දැන් අර්බුදයක් තියෙනවා.
මොන අර්බුදයක් මට නෑ.
ඒක තාම විශාල ගැටලුක රසකට ලං කියලා ඉන්නේ.
මොකද ජීවත් වෙන විදියක් නෑ. ඒකට මම උත්තර දෙන්න ඇති නෑ.
No more solution to the political crisis. A group is protesting saying Gota go home. The opposition is staging protest marches. The government is divided into two and is looking at who has the majority. None of this will provide solutions to this crisis. The politicians should keep aside their political agendas and work towards the stability of the country. These are not opinions that came about overnight. At one point they said J.R. Jayawardena should be killed. We shouldn't panic over this and instead find out as to why the people are saying this. When a patient comes with a cold, we cannot give him medicine for a headache. The right medication needs to be given for this illness. The rulers need to take strict decisions. They need to listen to the problems of the people. It can be the president, prime minister or the opposition leader. Strict decisions must be made. The people's problems should be answered. There is no point in covering up these matters. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will meet with the leaders of the political parties in government as well as the parties that decided to become independent at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. Today, parliamentarians representing the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna were summoned to the President's house for a discussion.
Eleven political parties that decided to become independent from the government held a discussion with the chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Maithripala Sirisena. During this meeting, they discussed the president's meeting, which is scheduled to take place tomorrow. SLFP General Secretary Dayasiri Jayasekara told Newsfirst that they decided to attend the meeting called for by the president. The group of parties had informed that they cannot attend the meeting without the SLFP, and thus the request was considered and a decision was reached. The president, in a letter addressed to the leaders of political parties affiliated with the government, called for a meeting to discuss an all-party government that can be formed after the Prime Minister and Cabinet resigns. However, the SLFP was of a separate stance before today's meeting.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party Central Committee and the Parliamentary Group had decided that if we are to attend this meeting, Shantha Bandara and Suren Raghavan must be removed from their ministerial positions. Before this meeting, the President awarded them with ministerial positions. He should have not done such a thing. There is no point in continuing with discussions when one takes over a group while the discussions are ongoing. We had issues on the level of mutual trust. The Central Committee discussed this matter and took a stern decision. We hope to discuss these matters with other parties as well. If they are removed from those ministerial positions, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party can attend the meeting.
ඒ අමාත්‍යවරු දෙක අයින් කරලා සාකච්ඡාවට අපිට යන්න පුළුවන්.
Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Rajitha Senaratne said the opposition will secure a majority in parliament next week. On the 3rd of May next week, we will show who commands a majority in parliament. Then the government will be asked to leave within the week. The opposition and the independents have come against the Rajapaksas. The people have stepped out as one.
A heated situation arose after it was reported that the Ridhi Mali at the Pradeshya Sabha chairman had assaulted a man who organized a protest close to the local government body.
People surrounded the Pradeshya Sabha building and demanded for the arrest of the chairman of the Pradeshya Sabha. The police later escorted the chairman of the Pradeshya Sabha to the Ridhi Mali at the police. Two people who were allegedly attacked by the chairman of the Ridhi Mali at the Pradeshya Sabha, Nishant Jayasundara, are receiving treatment at the Urania hospital.
Motorists in Colombo complained that 95-octane petrol is not available at any filling stations.
Multiple filling stations in Colombo did not have octane 95 petrol today. When Newsfirst inquired into the sale of 95-octane petrol, some CPC workers said they have not received stocks for several days. Our efforts to contact the relevant authorities were futile.
The International Committee of the Red Cross will be donating medical supplies to Sri Lanka through the Sri Lanka Red Cross.
Head of the International Committee of the Red Cross delegation in Sri Lanka, Lucas Petridis, paid a farewell call to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor G.L. Peiris, on Monday the 25th at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In response to the briefing by Professor Peiris on the current economic challenges, Petridis informed that the ICRC will donate medical supplies to Sri Lanka through the Sri Lanka Red Cross and further indicated that they are ready to provide humanitarian assistance based on the requirements of the government. During the meeting, the Foreign Minister appreciated the contribution made by the ICRC to Sri Lanka.
Indonesia has decided to donate 3.1 tons of humanitarian aid to Sri Lanka.
Indonesia's ambassador Devi Gustina Tobing briefed Professor G.L. Peiris on the update of humanitarian aid to Sri Lanka from the government of Indonesia yesterday. Ambassador Tobing briefed the foreign minister that pursuant to a request for essential medicines and medical equipment, the government of Indonesia worked with health officials and the pharmaceutical industry of Indonesia to facilitate the provision of 3.1 tons of humanitarian aid consisting of essential medicines and medical equipment valued at 517.5 million rupees. The ambassador noted that the humanitarian aid would reach Sri Lanka in 2 batches, with the first shipment to arrive today from Jakarta and the balance to arrive on the 8th of next month.
Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency's special court yesterday issued an order that it will interdict Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Punjab Chief Minister-elect Hamaz Shahbaz in a money laundering case.
The special court had to indict Shehbaz Sharif and his son Hamza Shehbaz and others allegedly involved in the case earlier this month, but the process was delayed due to the absence of the Prime Minister. However, Shehbaz Sharif did not appear before the court even yesterday. As a result, in its written order, the special court summoned him, Hamza, and all other suspects on the 14th of next month. Shehbaz Sharif took office after a historic and turbulent week in Pakistani politics, in which the former Prime Minister Imran Khan was toppled by a no-confidence vote. Shehbaz Sharif is the younger brother of Imran's predecessor Nawaz Sharif. Shehbaz Sharif and his son Hamza Shehbaz were also embroiled in a controversy surrounding a sugar scam.
And that's all the news we've got for you today on News First. But do stay tuned to our social media platforms and our award-winning site www.newsfirst.lk. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team, where the people come first, along with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Take care and God bless.